Now, England's quest to regain the Ashes lasted just about 3 test matches. England's batters barely showed up as Australia ruthlessly battered them into submission, and the prospect of a series whitewash is now all too real. There have been a record 9 defeats of the English team in the year 2021, and reports indicate that the head coach Chris Silverwood could face the axe in the coming days. So why has England hit rock bottom? WION sports editor Digvijay Singh speaks with the Ashes winner, the former English international Monty Panesar, and this is what he had to say.
At the start of the series, both teams were under a fair bit of pressure. It was evenly spread out. England were singed by the Yorkshire racism scandal, and Australia were rocked by Tim Paine's resignation 2 weeks before the first test. Yet, despite losing their captain and having a new man at the helm, they showed the resolve to bounce back.
Well, Australia have always been strong in their home conditions, and they've got a really strong bowling department. But at the start of the series, there was a reluctancy, from even in the England team too, for if this tour was going to go ahead. There were some reservations, but then due to financial pressure and how important the Ashes is for Test cricket, it was important that this does go ahead. And you can even see now with the Cricket Australia authorities, we had 1 case with Big Bash and the game was off, but we had 7 cases of COVID, positive results. But they still got the Ashes ahead. So you can see from a financial perspective and, for the future of Test cricket, it's important that we have these 2 Test matches to go ahead. There's a fear that there could be other cases coming through, but let's hope that's not the case and the 4th Test match does go ahead. And then especially when you see how India have done really well in Test cricket, there's a nation who's doing well in T20 and ODI, as well as the red ball cricket, and it's very much to do with the structure, the system, how people are coached, and that's something probably in England needs to be reviewed.
9 defeats in a calendar year. How humiliating is that for a cricket team that, let's be fair, has some pretty impressive talent? This is England we're talking about, not Papua New Guinea, who made their debut in the T20 World Cup.
Well, it is disappointing to see because, the bread and butter for English cricket is Test cricket. That's where the big bucks are coming from. And they've got to get back, on focusing that rather than, the 100-100 has been a huge success. And I think they should continue with that because it's helping the women's game. And we'll probably see more international cricketers come next year play because of, the pandemic this year. But then Joe Root needs to also demand, from the ECB bosses and say, look, I want my best 11, like Owen Morgan gets his best team. I want my best team available. And rest and rotation policy didn't work, and there are players out there who actually, they are desperate to play Test cricket and they know if they're injured or if they're too tired. But England should be, always looking to play their best 11, regardless of, who they're playing against and the schedule.
How does Root himself survive this then? Because, he's called the shots on the field. Some of his decisions have been criticised. And as Jeffrey Boycott said a few days back, 9 defeats in a calendar year means that he hasn't been able to get a grip on the team and stop the slide.
Well, it's been difficult for him, but he's kind of like, it's remarkable to see how he's able to, when he bats, he puts his batting head on and he's performed so well throughout the year. In terms of captaincy, he just hasn't been supported by, the batters. The bowling, I think they've done well, throughout the Test matches, apart from maybe in India where the spinning pitches are difficult. But apart from that, I think throughout the year, I think the bowlers have probably supported Joe Root as they needed to be done, but it's just been the top order batsmen. We've seen over, probably 50% of the first inning scores have been, under 250. Only once they've gone, above 400 this year. And they've had the most starts, since 1998. So this is obviously a concern. And, they're just not producing, Test quality batsmen and the techniques that come with it. And part of that, is to do with, structural issues. They had a great, plan to make sure England was a strong in ODI cricket and T20, which they've achieved. But also it's the planning and the preparation. The likes of why was Ben Stokes allowed to go to the IPL when the Ashes is an important series for this year. And that's something that maybe when in 2023 and they're playing in England, probably that'll be an easier one for them to prepare for, because Australia haven't won in England for over 20 years. But then when Australia lose in England, the gaps, it's not as huge margins. And maybe for them, for that particular year, they make sure their key players are ready for the Ashes.
WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.